Alright, hello and welcome. This is Azmodaos from the clan Furry HQ. It's just the battle tag for Furry headquarters, pardon my English. Um, this is going to be my first video ever, so uh, just start with a garage review, I guess. Let's see. And what better tank to start with than the one I already have selected? The T2 light tank, which is an American tier 2 light tank, simply put. I got this out of a bundle deal sold by a fellow by the name of Marquis Dragon. You can type that in Google and you can pretty much find where I found the bundle that I got. I won't be going into details for that. He does his own advertising on YouTube. Once again, you can look him up as Marquis Dragon. But anywho, let's get to the reviewing of the tank. In my opinion, this is probably the fastest tier 2 tank in the game. Has a nice speed of 72 kilometers an hour, which is about 50 miles an hour converted into American standards. I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that. My metric to imperial conversions are absolutely horrid, so we'll just stick with what this says. Very light machine, weighing in at just 7.6 tons with the configuration that I have, and I really don't carry very much on this. Has a good 265 horsepower engine, and judging from the looks of it, I'd have to say that it probably runs off of some sort of aircraft engine, much like the M18 Hellcat. But it accelerates exceedingly fast, and you will have no problem seeing speeds around 50 to 60 kilometers on the flat, and going up hills like the one at Proporovka or even Kampanovka, for lack of being able to remember the actual name. Actually, I'm just kidding, it's Malinovka. You will have no problem getting up those hills at about 40 some kilometers an hour. This thing is exceedingly fast. Downside though, it doesn't turn very well at speed. 47 degrees traverse speed, throw that out the window. When you're going anywhere near this thing's top speed, it turns like a battleship. If you're kind of cruising around through town, closer to what the traverse speed is, yeah, it's a bit more mobile in terms of its turning, so that's always a good thing. But outside of that, throw that 47 degrees a second out the window. Hull armor, not too impressive, but hey, it's a tier 2 tank. This armor will bounce stuff if you angle it about like so. But even then, there's plenty of other flat spots that can be hit, like there, all along there, that all gets peppered. So don't really expect this thing to bounce much. When it happens, it's great, but don't expect it. Turret armor, absolutely horrid. Not going to stop a single shell in the game. But hey, it's a tier 2. It's meant to be there for fun. Now, where this thing really kicks off in its own tier, and when you face off against the unlucky tier 1 tanks, is this gun. This beautiful little 20mm flak gun. It has modest penetration, which is good for its tier. Damage, not that great. Just simply put, not that great. But you're lobbing 3 shells at them per click, and it has 5 canisters, and each one of those canisters is 3-round burst. And you can empty all 5 of those canisters in a freaking heartbeat. This thing fires so fast, it's crazy. So that 9 to 15 damage, multiply that about 25 to 30 rounds, and it adds up quick. If steel wall were available at that tier, which I presume it is, I'm not entirely sure, this thing would be the thing to give it to you. Rate of fire, phenomenal. Takes about 15 to 20 seconds tops to reload all 5 canisters. Its turret traverse is actually pretty good, at 39 degrees per second. There are other higher tier tanks that wish they had that. 260 meters of view range, not bad, with kind of a decent radio range. Once again, tier 2, don't expect much. But for when it does get into its own tier matches, this thing is phenomenal. Just fun little tank. Let's see, equipment wise, really, outside of ventilation and the gun laying drive, I really wouldn't suggest much. That actually would be all my suggestions for this. Maybe a spa liner, or if it tickles your fancy, coated optics, but really, you don't need it. This thing is get in there, do the damage, and get out. Simply put, toolbox, really not worth it, in my opinion, because as soon as this thing stops moving and you're getting shot at, you're dead. Simply put, you are dead. So really, all that, not worth it. Shells, you only got the 2 choices between the armor piercing and APCR rounds. You'd have to be really stinking rich to afford all 1,200 of these. Let's just give you a quick look at what that looks like. That's either 1,200 gold or a whopping 480,000 credits. And you're chewing through easy 200 to 300 rounds in a match. So let's just look at about average for this thing. That's 90,000 credits. You will never make that much in this tank. So let's just go back over to this. Simple as that. Very typical stuff. Oops. Yeah. Very typical fire extinguisher, repair kit, first aid kit. Typical loadout that I carry. This thing has no upgrades since it's basically a premium tank. But you really aren't going to be able to buy this in the store. The only reason why I have this is because I bought a bundle pack. Moving along to the thing that wishes it was, the T26E4 Super Pershing. This thing at long range is a beast. It's got a good gun with modest penetration and decent damage. This spaced armor, which give you a good view of it right there, will bounce a lot of things. At its own tier, anything lower than it, good luck ever penetrating the front armor, even here at the machine gun port. Just simply put, good luck. Even the lower glacis is very hard to pen. You can point this thing dead at your opponent and reasonably expect bounces in your own tier and lower. Tier 9 and 10, which is Tier 9, yeah, you'll see a lot of those. Tier 10, not so much, but you will want to angle your armor against higher tier opponents just to give it that little extra boost, and you don't really have to angle it that much. Honestly though, you want to angle it like this so they don't ever have a shot into that machine gun ball. Any modest tier 8 and above gun will have absolutely no problem getting through that. So just angle it like so. Boom. Nothing's getting through that front plate. Same with the turret. Let's give you a view of how thick that thing is there. And that's just the spaced armor. That's not including the gun mantlet, the gun where the gun is actually mounted into the tank, and the smidge of armor in between those two layers. That is a lot of armor for any shell to go through. And au contraire, I can guarantee that is a lot thicker than 102 millimeters. If that was the case, any tank above tier 5 would punch right through that like nothing. But that's not so. This thing has been known to stop all kinds of shells. Even shells from bigger tanks, say like the E75. An E75 will have troubles going through that. Though, don't exactly expect it to stop it. It really comes down to how far away you are. Up close and personal, good luck getting anything to bounce off of that turret. Or let alone off of the hull. You can kind of get away with face hugging, but not so much. This tank best plays at medium to long range, though the gun really prohibits that kind of play a fair amount. It really makes you have to pick and choose your shots. Can you penetrate it? Let alone if you can even hit it at all, and you actually have a chance of possibly going through a weak spot. So really, this is a sniper's delight. You got that nice heavy armor. Let's see, where is it? And a modest gun. 170 pen, kind of low for a tier 8, especially a tier 8 gun, and low on the damage, but that .38 accuracy is fairly good. 2.3 aiming time is fairly good. And it fires just around 7.5 rounds a minute at 100% crew, as you can see I have here. Also have the ventilation and gun rammer, which will also increase that firing speed. Repairs, huge thing. Always get something to repair this tank. Your tracks, your gun, your modules in general in this thing get ripped apart fairly well, and artillery loves these things. Absolutely loves them more than a KV. Why? Well, because the KV can actually almost outrun this thing. As you can see, that 38 kilometers an hour speed limit, not happening. Unless you're going downhill. On the flats, you're lucky to get about 25 kilometers. So, yeah, you're not going anywhere fast in this tank. I guess I should probably do crew skills. On this one I have Brothers in Arms, which is the thing I always get for my commanders. Before I realized actually I got to get it for my entire crew. Repairs, always a good thing. Decided to go with firefighting on this one. Mostly because I have had some problems with fires. And fire will destroy this thing very, very quickly. Apparently they don't clean the oil out of the back of their tanks, but oh well. Since I do play it as a bit of a sniper tank, I wanted to get situational awareness. Always a good thing, because it extends my view range. Now, this thing has a 380 meter view range. Not that great. But it has a nice 745 meter signal range. Other things, really, I have no idea what the heck this is about. That's just all signal range. Though repairs always a good thing. Camo, depending on the way you play it. Personally, I tend to play it more as a sniper tank, so that's always a good thing. Firefighting depends on your luck with fires, but a nice little thing to have. So yeah, and safe storage also a good thing. Ammo racking, not a huge problem, but might as well try and reduce the potential of that happening. Now we move on to the infamous T-29 heavy tank. This thing, back in the golden days, before normalization and whatnot, was really the one tier 7 tank nobody really wanted to bump into, outside of maybe a competent IS driver. But the reason was German tanks like the Tiger, they couldn't get their gun far enough down to actually hit them in the hull if the T-29 driver decided to face hug them. Why? Well, take a look. 279 millimeters worth of armor on the front of this thing, and that is the gun mantlet. And trying to shoot anything else on the side of that is just going to bounce off. Hitting those, pain in the butt, and I think they refixed the hitboxes so those really don't do a darn thing from the front. And trying to hit this driver's cupola back here, or commander's cupola, I guess, good luck. Just honestly, good luck. And when you do hit it, it loves to bounce. So, face hugging, totally valid in this thing. Unless you're going against something with good gun depression or is shorter than you that can just punch shells into here. And this thing, 102 meters, whole armor, not going to save you from much. Though, if played properly with modest angling, if you're out in the open, like so, you can actually start to reasonably expect bounces. And the moreover you get like that without actually exposing this part of your hull and keeping that awesome turret armor front, almost nothing's going to be bouncing through that until if a good gunner, or player I should say, can start poking away at your lower glacis, which sadly gets larger as you angle your armor. Up front, still a sizable target, but the angling is so much better. It actually becomes flatter as you angle your armor, which is usually the opposite case, but in this case it does happen. Full front, yeah, a good gun, no problem going through that. Especially if they decide to shoot you right there. Once again, machine gun ball. Great idea in terms of infantry support, but tank on tank, up close and personal, when they got an eyeball on that, kiss that thing goodbye. Sides, rear, absolutely horrible on this tank. Pretty open right in through there. And you got a nice flat spot right there. So if you get flanked, you're in trouble. But the nice thing is, this thing has 0-point turning. Same with the super Pershing. What that means is you can turn in place without your entire hull kind of rotating forward while you're doing it. Such is the case with the Russian tanks, for example. So, honestly, good tank, modest stats, great hold-down sniper, and a big thorn in the side if you need to be, while trying to hold a defensive position. This thing excels at that. On the offensive, play it safe, keep your hull in as much cover as possible. Try and stay in artillery cover because you're playing a heavy. Artillery loves pounding the crap out of heavy tanks. But the nice thing is, you have a modest speed limit, and this thing will reasonably get close to it. Usually you average about 25 to 34 kilometers an hour on the flat. And it has a nice engine, 800 horsepower on a 65-ton machine. It's pretty good. Honestly, that is pretty darn good. Gun stats, 198 pen and 320 damage, which is actually better than the Pershing's, but this is a 105mm gun. That uses a 90. So that's why. But the rate of fire, absolutely horrible. But it has reasonable accuracy if you know how to compensate your shots. But as a general rule, .42, not that great. But it has a decent aiming time. Really, you just gotta learn how to compensate your shots. That's all it comes down to. Equipment, as you can see, my standard rammer vents. Cruise at 100%. Really just trying to save my ammo. Bring that up here. Brothers in Arms, which only helps if you got the entire crew with it. Boosting the signal range. Off-road King, or off-road driving, which will help this thing in softer ground, or just driving off-road in general. Snapshot, because you will be moving that turret around a lot. And then situational awareness, because once again, I play American tanks more like sniper tanks than anything. So, trying to sit and hide in a bush or behind a hill, I'd really like to know when something spots me, especially when I don't see them. Which is very useful in little tanks like this, the M18 Hellcat. Honestly, this thing has just been a blast to play. Downside though, a tier 1 tank could penetrate this, no problem. 13mm of hull armor. But it has a good gun, and it is extremely fast, 72 kilometers an hour, which I believe makes it the fastest tank destroyer in the game that I know of. Turns like a gunship, but it'll more than keep up with any of the tier 5 scouts. So yeah, it's a good tank in that regard, because you can kind of play it like a medium. The speed and maneuverability lets you get out of a sticky situation if you find yourself in one and are lucky enough to actually get away. And yeah, not the best view range, especially for a tank destroyer, but it has a really good signal range, 750. But that turret traverse is absolutely horrible, 16 degrees per second, which really does limit your medium style of play, which this thing can do, circumstances providing. Pretty light tank, just a little over 20 tons on my setup, which isn't bad. Good engine, and just all around good stats. Camo, signal range. Forgot what I have on this one. Yet more camo. Snapshot and Brothers in Arms. Binoculars, gun rammer to increase that already pretty good rounds per minute, and a camo net to help further that camo rating. And tank destroyers, like light tanks, already have a huge camo buffer. Plus what my crew has, this thing is incredibly stealthy. I have had tanks pass within 40 meters of this thing and not know it was there. So, extremely stealthy tank destroyer if you can park it in a bush. And it is so small that you can actually get away with doing just that. but never rely on the armor with any sort of angling. Bounces are extremely few and far between, even in lower tier matches. The most likely place to bounce is right here on the gun mantlet. Outside of that, don't expect it. Just try and stay out of the way, away from where you're going to get shot, but where you can see things and shoot them without them seeing you. All in all, great tank. Fun to play, absolutely love it. Then we have the IS-3. Good tank. Unfortunately, I don't have the fully upgraded gun as of yet, but I am using the IS's top gun, the D25T, which is a modest gun. It does the damage, has modest penetration, horrible rate of fire. I actually seem to remember the thing being faster than what it is, but hey, what can you do with an 83% crew and really just inexperienced playing the tank. I really don't think I've survived very many matches in this. I'm not really used to playing it, but it's a great tank. This front hull, extremely bouncy, except for that lower glacis, which will get turned to Swiss cheese in no time flat. Big weak spot against tall tanks like German tanks, American tanks, and some of the British tanks. This whole area here, up top, if you get plugged anywhere up here by artillery, bye-bye, sayonara, tank is dead. Artie can one-shot ammo rack this thing almost consistently. Almost every time I've died from artillery fire, it's been through the roof in ammo rack. Side armor, not the best, but decently angled. Same with the rear armor. This thing is meant to be played frontways. Angling it really defeats the purpose unless you can get it just right, which is exceedingly painful to do. I really don't know how to do it, but this turret, oh my god, it's so amazing. 22 centimeters thick, which is about 10 inches thick. Once again, metric conversions, not my best thing. Don't quote me on it. 11 centimeters front, 9 in the back, sides, 6 in the rear, not that great. Doesn't turn very fast, don't expect that speed limit. Average you'll do is about 30 to 32 kilometers an hour, which really isn't too bad on a almost 50-ton machine. So, no sense griping about that. You have a nice plug of hit points, good powerful engine, great gun. But that turret turns pretty slow, but you shouldn't really have to completely turn your turret at something unless you're being flanked, in which case you're going to want to turn the hull with it. And these things creep forward. Instead of just simply turning in place, they roll forward and turn, which is the difference between 0 point and, non-0 point. View range, not the best, though once you get used to the gun, it is a modest sniper once you figure it out, but you really got to rely on people spot and stick for you. What this thing is meant to do is be a frontline tank. You get stuck in there where you don't need to rely on that accuracy, and you can just blast away with the phenomenal power of the 122 guns. Once again, do not have the top gun for this thing, so that strategy is rather ineffectual, and really I'm just having a hard time playing this tank as it's supposed to because of that drawback. But, oh well, live and learn and figure out new ways to play. Whereas this thing, the IS-6, once again, tank designed to be stuck in there, front line, in the face, pounding the crap out of things. Only has 100 millimeters on the front and sides, Side armor penetrated really well, but the front armor extremely bouncy. Even from full front, lower glacis, yeah, good luck hitting that. Very bouncy front. Turret extremely bouncy at 150 millimeters thick. Not much goes through that, but when it does, it really seems to hit the ammo rack, and will more often not either disable your gun, your commander, your gunner, or your loader. The gunner, loader, and ammo rack on this thing are absolutely vital. No two ways about it. You lose them, you're boned. Driver, also very painful to lose, but this thing's not exactly that fast to begin with, but still. But as compared to the IS-3, this thing is pretty much a miniature IS-4. It's a brawler. This thing loves getting in there nice and close and pounding the crap out of stuff. But don't believe that. This thing is actually a pretty good sniper tank when you figure out how to compensate for the trajectory of your shells. Of course, every now and again it goes a little off, and you got that monstrous aiming time, but hey, if you're sniping with it, you got plenty of time. Just sit back and be patient. Biggest complaints on this is that 175 pen. It is horrible, because more often than not, you get the downside of its roll. Don't remember where exactly to go to find the actual spread of that. Oh wait, there it is. 131 to 219 standard pen. More often than not, you get more towards the low end of this. But when you get the high end, plus critical damage on that shell, oh mama, they feel it. Decent rate of fire, good traverse speed, not the worst, but not the best either. Modest view range, horrible signal range. This thing is supposed to be up close, and its stats truly reflect that. And to bring this oblong video to a closing note, we have the new M5A1 Stuart. Not all that remarkable or all that different from its American cousin, which everybody has seen and likes to rage about. What makes this thing so much fun is it tends to get lower tier matches, usually 3 through 5, where this little bugger is very good. It's fast, it's agile, turret turns very quickly, and you have a respectable 47mm gun, which can hurt quite a few things. Just don't expect to punch through much of tier 5 heavy's armor. You're not really going to be able to do it. But outside of that, it's really good. Its own tier. But when you're out of your own tier, I've tried playing it like a passive scout with mixed results. But when the passive scouting works and you can get in there, this thing will eat artillery alive. So, fun tank. Trying to plan on keeping it and just seeing how what goes. Anyways, y'all probably tired of me rambling by now, so this has been Azmodaos. See you next time.